Good morning, everyone, and welcome back. It's great to see everyone. Feel like a club or something, like we've got a community that we've formed here. So I've got a lot to cover today, and I want to start off right out of the gate. We're going to continue with toxic in some form. Narcissism is what we're talking about, the spectrum of narcissism, parenting, all right? And as we talked about last week, stage one, and we talked a lot about it, starts off with just basic acceptance. Does it mean you like it? Does it mean you agree? It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't necessitate that. It just means that internally, in our mind, we do the best we can to just let go. All right. Just say there's nothing to be gained by holding on. There's nothing to be gained by wishing things could be or will be different. I can't control it. Okay. I've put the best I have into changing this situation, this relationship. It's worked however well or how badly it's worked. And I accept that that's what it is, all right? We have to do that. We have to accept that our parents had limits, sometimes unacceptable limits, especially when it came to providing unconditional love, acceptance, and the ability to feel empathy, that they could feel what we feel and share it, all right? That was lacking. We just can't allow ourselves to stay in denial, all right? We are depriving ourselves of the life that we're meant to have, that we actually can have. If we stay in denial, just continuing to bump our head against a stone wall. To recover, we have to learn how to feel our own feelings, and we can't do that when we stay in fantasy land, hoping for something that the other person just doesn't have to give. If they did have it, they would give it. It's not out of malice. They just don't get it. They just don't see the world that way. They don't process the things in their life or in our life that way. Their needs come first. Who knows why? Probably as a result of the life that they've had up to the time we arrived, and needy little people looking to this person who was unready to be that kind of parent. All right, nobody meant to do this. However, that doesn't give them a hall pass. They're still responsible for the unmet parenting tasks. It still affected us. It's not about blame. It's about responsibility. That's a very different thing. Blame has anger and resentment attached to it. Responsibility has acceptance. You know what? That was your job. As a child, that's what I needed. That's what every child needed. And I didn't get it, and it has affected me negatively. That's responsibility. All right. So we need to accept what happened, the way it happened, and that still made it a problem. It's still a problem, all right, if you're carrying it. After acceptance comes stage two, grief. But grief can feel complicated, okay? As children, we had to deny that our parents were incapable of unconditional love and empathy. We had to do that. We had no other way to survive other than to accept what we got, wishing for something vague, different. We didn't even know what more we needed. We had to deny that it was about them, because if we did that, they are our whole orbit of the universe, our survival, mental, physical, spiritually, emotionally. It's all about them. All right. We depend on them. But we are not children now. A child yearns. Just know, accept, be peaceful with the fact you were entitled to that as a child. You didn't get it, but you were entitled to it because every child, there was nothing odd or demanding about you. That's what it is to be a child. Every child yearns for love. And more than that, even acceptance and approval above all else. All right? It's sort of parental love, acceptance, approval is like when the sun comes out. Okay? As children, we need approval. And we need approval of us. Not if I'm a good boy, then I'm loved. If I'm a good girl, then if you do this, then, which is not the same as not getting your allowance if you didn't clean your room. We're talking fundamentally who you are. You've got to be somebody different. All right. That's not the same thing as maturation either. Fundamentally, you are good enough and you're loved, even on your worst day. All right. Without adequate amounts of both unconditional love and acceptance, as I said before, we need denial. We still do now because we're staying in a childlike state. We're denying ourselves adulthood. We're denying ourselves self-actualization when we stay in that childlike state. We need denial to manage because as children and even as adults, we still have developmental requirements for growing and surviving. Remember last week we talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs? I hope most of you went on the internet and found the triangle, the different layers to self-actualization. All right? If through our podcasts I can help you motivate yourself to climb that pyramid, okay, my work is complete. All right? Don't give up and don't satisfy for less than you need and less than you're capable of. It's work, though. Just because you're entitled to it doesn't mean it comes on a platter. You have to work for it, okay? You're capable of it. Okay, so let's look a little closer at the grief process. Truth is, when we head into this stage of grief, we bounce all over the place, like a snooker ball on a pool table. It's like one day here, 10 minutes there. It can be very disruptive. All right, we bounce all around, back and forth, up and down through all the other stages. That's grief. Grief is about letting it go, allowing yourself to feel the emotions, and they don't have to make sense. Don't be judge and jury over your feelings. We're going to talk in a minute, though, about a really good way to help you with that so you don't stay like that snooker ball on the table. All right. Technology, okay? Who thought technology was actually going to be a good thing? So in life, some people are writers and some people are talkers. You can journal in any mode you feel that suits you best. It's really important to track. You can use a recording app on your phone or any other device and talk to yourself into it about how you're feeling, why you're feeling, what the memories are. Get them out. They don't become big and scarier. They become observable. All right, don't be afraid to let it out. When you can see it, when you can hear it, you have all of your senses as an adult so much better resourced than that little inner child, right? That little inner child is stuck in childhood. When you get it out, whether you say it into a device, whether you write it, and you can go back, you can check, you can remind yourself, all right, get it out. Whatever it is, get it out. All right. If you prefer writing, do traditional journaling. Stage 3. All right. So that grief is about dump it. Dump it in whatever way is right for you. All right. Stage 3, surprise, surprise, is bargaining. Okay. Because when we look back on our life, and we start to lift the veil of denial, we always knew there was more on the other side. That's why we couldn't be okay with it. That's why we couldn't be quiet with it. All right. That's why it continued to affect us. We knew on the other side of the veil of denial, there was something. We weren't 100% sure what it was. Even as children, we know it. We do know it. All right. We're able to realize that we've really been bargaining our whole life with our parents, both internally, what we said to ourselves, what we wouldn't allow ourselves to consider, what we did directly, how we thought, how we maneuvered, how we planned, how we were going to broach that topic. Just, sometimes it feels like walking on eggshells, and sometimes it feels like just being strategic. The thing about your parents is, they are supposed to be the people you can be authentic with. But first, they have to set an example of what authenticity is. All right? If you had narcissistic parents, that wasn't authentic. Okay? It wouldn't feel like so much of a slam and so much of a loss and so confusing if it was authentic. It would just have been in the groove. Okay? So our whole life, all right, we've been bargaining. We've been bargaining with ourselves as well, wishing and hoping that they'd change, telling ourselves, maybe this time it would be different. Maybe if we did it this way, maybe if we didn't do that, maybe. All right, we're so busy managing rather than just relating. All right, maybe things you've tried many times over many years. Write them all down, say them all. All right. You did it to win their love and their approval. Those two things kids can't live without. And it was like an investment almost, right? If I just am this way, maybe magically they'll approve of me. I'll get that sense of I'm okay. It'll work this time. There is no magic. All right. Magic is for the circus, a different circus. All right. So journal, because it will give you something to go back and refer to. When you think you're crazy, when you think you're making it all up, when you think, oh, come on, it couldn't have been that bad. I'm experiencing this again for the one, well, it feels familiar. The 1,000,000th time, you can go back, you can look at the date in your journal, all right, the date stamp on whatever the recording was, and you can say, really? I've been doing that for 20 years? Really? That was still there. Sometimes when the mystery about it too starts to lift a bit and you get a better, clearer view of exactly what's going on, all the different types of narcissism we talked about, all the different messaging that narcissists use to disable and disenfranchise others, you can spot that. You've recorded it in some form, all right? There's nothing like going back and realizing how much time you've actually been doing this dance to go, whatever it takes, it's worth it, all right? Whatever it takes, I'm leaving the dance floor. All right. Yeah. No, get a new partner, not me. Not available. All right. So you can see or you can hear and appreciate the steps too that you've taken. Your observations may be different. Your conclusions may be different. The options you give yourself as you experience this and identify it for what it is, how you protect yourself, also how you protect them from being parents that they may never have set out to be. All right. But it sure helps you to stop denying it. All right. And it helps you to really realize just how far you've actually come. Stage 4, get ready for it. All right. Anger. Did you think we were getting out of this without anger? No, of course. When we enter this stage, we can begin to feel intense anger, and it can come up just like a flash, prompted by something that's said or a memory or an emotional flashback. We've talked about those. If you missed that, go back to emotional flashbacks and watch that episode, that podcast, all right? Can also come back as profound sadness and disappointment, all right? Occasionally, we can even feel anger to the point of rage. So if you feel that coming on, I really suggest that you get some support. We don't want that just hanging on, all right? We just don't. When we realize just how inadequately our emotional needs were, which up to now we didn't really have a clear understanding of, we kind of had a hunch something wasn't quite right. We knew it because we often felt disenfranchised. We often felt dismissed. We often felt manipulated. We often felt angry. We often felt hurt. We often felt rejected. Okay. That should have awakened us that something wasn't working quite right. So get ready for it. It will come. All right. Also, that this neglect, at the least, it was neglect. If you find that it went beyond that to abuse, we will be talking about this in an upcoming podcast. We're going to do Narcissistic Fathers. This book by Amy Landry, Landry. And we are going to be talking about narcissistic abuse recovery. We're probably going to do at least 2 podcasts on that by Dr. Teresa J. Covert. All right. We're going to use her material. I've done this deliberately so that you folks have resources, and I'm sure these books are in the library. All right. They're not unknowns, these individuals. So sometimes we also feel really, really angry with ourselves. Why? For allowing this pattern to develop. Like as a child, you could do something else. Really? All right, really? I want you, if you get stuck in that blaming yourself or, I was so whatever, and you're angry with yourself, I want you to think of what age you were when these things were happening. You just need a hunch. You don't need, this is not a court of law where you need witnesses, all right? And then I want you to look around for a child that is that age and ask yourself, if I was that size and that age, and I was that unresourced, really I'm going to be angry with myself? Would I be angry with that child? Would you expect that child to manage their parents? Would you? So why would you do it to yourself? Stop judging yourself as an adult for something you weren't resourced to do and you shouldn't have had to do as a child. All right? But don't direct the anger outward. Feel it. Okay? Feel it, journal it, and let's move on. Okay. We're probably also going to start to inventory all of the costs we've paid. If we keep working on recovery, though, our recovery, anger will give way to some degree of, and this is going to sound like really this is an improvement, but it really is. It really is a step forward. That intense sadness or depression, right? It was sad. Why would you expect to feel differently? All right? Why would you expect to feel differently? Just don't stay there. So that level of intense sadness or some degree of depression, all right, that's stage 5. These feelings of intense sadness can be about having lost so much time, maybe so many opportunities. Maybe you want to go back and think about what you would have done differently if you'd been adequately loved unconditionally, parented instead of manipulated. Okay. Sometimes those intense feelings of sadness and depression can be finally realizing that you have to let go of the hope for a dream because that's all it was. It's like hoping that you'll have a house. All right. But when you open the door to the house, you realize there are no floors because there was no foundation for that house. That's what this wished for. If your parents did actually have narcissistic traits and the degree to which they did, all right, it was a dream. What was that dream of? Probably of a kind parent that you've always secretly wanted, and you just knew that if you could just be what they wanted you to be, that they were capable of it and it was there for the having. It wasn't, right? And the sadness and perhaps even to some degree depression might be about that we finally realized that they will never, that was then. You're in the same relationship now. These people didn't change. Generally, as people age, yes, they soften, but they get better at whoever they are. It becomes more entrenched, and that's true for all of us if we don't work on it, if we don't acknowledge it ourselves. Somebody else can tell us, but until we can conceive of it here, the truth of it here, we can't do it here, and we can't do it here. All right? So the sadness can also be realizing they're never going to be as loving or as accepting as we want. And we still need them to be. All right. That means the truth is that we'll never have the relationship. You see how this is like the penny starts to drop, what the different implications of this are. We'll never have the relationship with them that we've dreamed was possible. Perfectly normal if we feel abandoned. And if we do feel abandoned, like all this work, all this change, all this hope, all this trust, all this whatever, nothing for it, I can't have what I need. Well, you can't have it from them, but that's not the only way to have unconditional love and acceptance. All right. Now we're moving on next week in, okay, how do you do it for yourself? All right. So if you realize that you do feel abandoned, you do feel alone, ask yourself, how many other times in your life have you played out that pattern to reproduce being abandoned, being alone, doing it yourself? You're entitled to feel that way. Just make up your mind, though, that you're not going to stay with feelings of abandonment. You're there now. You don't have, if you choose to stay there, that's where you'll be, but you don't have to. That's not the end of this story. there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's the maturity and self-acceptance we develop, right? When we feel safe. We ourselves create our safety. And we recognize that we are more resourced, and we can be even more resourced enough to let go of all expectations. Expect guilt at this stage, all right? Our culture teaches us that good children, there are those committee voices, they don't resent, they don't dislike their parents, even temporarily, not for any reason, all right? Harken back to the messages we received about, remember, you had food in your stomach, you had a roof over your head. What are you complaining about? Sometimes we voice over that because we're afraid to move forward. Remember, we're moving to creating our own safety and our own self-acceptance. That is an act of faith. Look what happened the last time we counted on people. All right, this is a complete act of faith at this point. All right. Let it be okay to feel the guilt. Just let it be. Don't fight it. Okay. Because if you resist, you hold on to it longer. You're just going to feel guilty sometimes, right now. Okay. Takes a whole lot of energy, all right, to hold on to things. A deeper understanding of what you need to do will come. All right? Okay. So just let it be. The intensity starts to dissipate. So what I'm going to ask you to do at this point is help yourself find the peace and the freedom to move past these intensely negative states. All right. As children, we were meant to individuate and separate. That is a required developmental stage in growing up. But that little inner child didn't feel safe. So there may be some codependency as well. All right. That little inner child was saying, don't do it. Don't do it. It didn't work out well for us the last time. No, 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 no. And so you may have this internal struggle with your adult self and your inner child. All right. All right. So this separation and individuation, generally it starts at about age 2. And you know that because these little demons at age 2 begin to say, no, mine. No, mine. You know the terrible 2s? All right. All right. So, and it continues, that no, mine continues if you've got the support for it to continue. It continues throughout life as the child matures and develops. But how many of you allowed that to happen enough? Because at the same time, the child is doing that. No, mine, no, mine, no, mine. Part of that process into early childhood, early adolescence, is to develop and be aware of and feel entitled to their own wants, their own needs, their own desires. How many people here, put your hands up, aren't entirely aware of what your wants are, or you think they're out of reach? Sometimes it happens to all of us, all right? Sometimes you really need to chew down on it to figure it out. Do you know what your needs are? Do you know what your A level, B level, and C level needs? Remember, we talked about this way back in one of the podcasts. Your A level needs are those needs that you absolutely can't do without. You need them every moment of every day. All right. Your B level needs, they're important. They're the ones that will, if they're adequately met, enough of the time, not every moment of every day. You need those to be happy and emotionally healthy and feel safe. They're quite unique to you. Your C level needs, those are the icing on the cake. You know what? If once in a while you get that, it's just the best day. All right? Best day ever. This week, I would like to give all of you homework. I would like every one of you to sit down and write out, what are your A level needs? Respect, acceptance, even on your worst day, even when you've made a complete botch up of things, that you're treated with respect, that the people closest to you try to understand before they take pot shots at you or judge you or assess how well you've done. All right. And love, unconditional love. But first you have to unconditionally love yourself so you know what it feels like. Your B level needs. Those might be things like time, the people closest to you, that they give you enough of their time, that they give you enough of their presence. They can spend time with you, but are they really relating to you? Are you really connected? Now that, some days yes, some days no, depends on the day. All right. But that for instance, one of mine is that I can trust you, and that I know that even if you knew you could take advantage of me, you never would do that. You just never would do that. Who knows where that came from, but I discovered that. What are yours? Yours might not be that. And C level needs, C level needs are, well, I had one of them today. I looked outside and there's a female cardinal and a male cardinal out there. And I know that when the cardinals arrive, it's going to be a good day. It's going to be a good day. All right. Yeah. Now, I think probably believing that also makes it a better day. Interesting, I feel that, right? Because today we also had to get a ton of snow moved off the roof in case it knocked out the bell lines. But I tell myself that. So with those C level needs, am I actually making more days good days? By the meaning that I apply? Why wouldn't I do that if I could? Why wouldn't I teach myself? What's it going to cost me? Okay, the right to grumble and make it a bad day? Okay, work with it. What are your needs? What are your desires? All right. And in individuating and separating, we do it because we have to break away from our parents to form a healthy sense of self. Can you see where this has gone wrong? The more you have to look to your parent, even as an adult, to manage them, to manage those narcissistic needs, because you're still trying to manage the outcome. You're still engaging in that dance. Do you realize you can't really develop a healthy sense of yourself? A completely healthy sense of yourself? Because you don't have enough of an internal locus of control. You're still being guided by an external locus of control. I don't know how to act if I'm not reading somebody or something or a situation and it's outside of my purview and my control. I have news for you. The only thing that we can change, how many times have we been told this? All right, because it's true. The only thing that you can control is you. So start today. What are your needs? What are your desires? What are your wants? What are your boundaries and limits? What are your boundaries and limits? All right. Healthy parents allow this to happen gradually and naturally. Is it painful? Oh, yeah, it's painful. It always comes as a surprise when your teenager tells you their rights. Yeah, that's a day that we all look back on and think, rights. Oh yeah, they're 15. Yeah. All right. Okay. Nobody said it was going to be a comfortable day and a kumbaya moment, but it has to happen. All right. Part of separating from your parents and childhood is ridding yourself of the negative self-talk. If you're joining the club, the critics in the committee, and beating yourself up and second guessing yourself, what's the worst that could happen if you made a mistake? Really? Take a chance. Take a chance. Do what you think, believe is the best choice. Practice it. You're going to make some mistakes. That's how you're going to learn. All right? In this case, generally that self-talk is often expressed, all right, in I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. There's something wrong with me. I'm fundamentally flawed. You're right. You are. You're supposed to be. You're absolutely right. That wasn't a hunch. That's the truth. You are flawed. All right. So what? Everybody else is too. Do your best. What's the perfect decision? Who knows? Who knows what the perfect thing is? You're not supposed to know what the perfect thing is. Let go of it. Make a better decision. Remember, go back to the podcast on no to yes decisions. All right, that is sound stuff. Go back and listen to it. That's why I did these podcasts in this progression, so that gradually, as you climb this ladder to be able to see over the barriers, you've got the steps in place. All right? You are good enough. On your worst day, you're good enough. Are you perfect? No, nobody would like you if you were perfect, because you'd be a big phony. All right? Are you unlovable? You are absolutely not unlovable. You are lovable. Be lovable. Okay. A lot of people saying, I'm not enough. I can't trust myself. I have to ask somebody else for their opinion because there's something wrong with me. Okay. If you give yourself these messages, do you know why you're giving yourself these messages? You didn't come up with this as a child. No child came up with this on their own. All right. You're telling yourself that because you internalize these messages from somewhere else. Probably takeaway or misunderstandings or something from the key people in your life. Who knows what they meant? You can't go back. They couldn't remember half of this anyway, even if you could go back and replay it. All right, let it go. These internal messages, though, they speak to you in a way that nothing else does. You know why? Because they come from the voice of that parent, especially the parent with the narcissistic traits, or the parent that you still have unfinished business with. Sometimes those parents are still with you. Sometimes those parents have passed. Just because they've passed doesn't mean you can't resolve this. Whether you can resolve it with parents who are still with you or not entirely depends on whether they're motivated. You can't control that. Okay? Right now, I want you to decide for yourself to silence those messages. How are you ever going to get to the top of the ladder to see over the barriers you want to clear if you're talking yourself down from the ladder? How is that going to work for you? And all that negative self-talk, just make the best decision. Just make the best choice you can think of. And tweak it. If it's not exactly what you need, it's not cast in stone. It's always salvageable. It's always improvable. Say and do anything that's legal to block that self-talk. All right? Really get tough with yourself. Wallowing is not good for the soul. And stop listening to them now. Override them. Remember, was it last week or the week before that? I asked you to sit down and write 10 messages to yourself about what your qualities and what your strengths were. The next time the committee decides to convene a meeting and make you, tied to the chair and have to listen, I want you to get that list out. And I want you to talk over it. I talk to myself all the time. It's the only way to get consensus. All right? Because when I hear it, I can assess it. Really, Elaine? Really? How's that true? That can't be true. That can't be true because of this other. We have wonderful conversations with ourselves. All right? And I'm using more of my senses rather than just let it rattle around in my head. It works. I would not suggest you do it on a bus, but in the privacy of your own whatever, go for it. Use as many senses as you possibly can to assess the accuracy and the health for yourself and the people you love the most. All right? Override those messages. And so, that little inner child, I want you to talk to that little inner child as well, because I want you to talk to him or her with the messages that you would have thought and said if you were an independent observer watching the narcissism react on that child. If you could have watched the dance, the parent or significant other, could be a partner now in your current life, all right? If you could have been an independent observer and that was a child it was happening to, I want you to tell that child what you know to be the truth now. You can do that for yourself. And you can really quiet that child. You can really put them in a safe place by reparenting them now. You can make yourself feel safe because you know what? You're attending this podcast because more than anything, you want to show up for yourself. You start now. You show up for yourself starting today. Every time the committee starts, you be that independent observer. That voice is on the tape because it's voiced over from the past. You didn't come up with that one on your own. All right. And if it's continuing to come up, that doesn't feel positive, but you know what? In a kind of a weird way, it is positive because it's out there now. Today, now that message is out there. And now you can see it for what it is. Now you can voice over it. Now you can go to your list and you make the list. It's not going to come to you. That habit of listening to those voices, if you don't give yourself tools and resources to work with that solidify it, that use your other senses, they can get pretty loud and pretty demanding. All right, because you're used to hearing them. It's almost like they can preempt other messages. They can't. You get as many senses. Start talking to yourself. It works. You can't hear them when you're talking to yourself. All right. What would you have taken that child aside and said instead? Maybe you want to write down some of those messages. On my worst day, I am a lovable, worthy person looking for a better choice. And I will find it. That's what I did. Remember in the book? That's what I did every day. Every day through that horrible period in my life, I went and I looked in the mirror and I thought, I need strength. I heard myself say one time, give me strength, out of frustration with something. And then I thought, that's not a bad idea. Strength is what I need. That's not a bad idea. Pretty smart there, Birchall. Pretty smart there. Okay, let's go for strength. And then when I needed that strength, I went and I looked in the mirror. I saw myself and I thought, what, you again? Okay, we need more. We need more. All right. And that's when it occurred to me, when they looked at you square in the eye, who did you know was seeing you for who and what you really were and gave you strength and gave you almost like a beacon in the dark? And it was my dad, my mom too, but my dad came to mind. And every morning I got up and I went and I looked in that mirror and I said, you're Ken Birchall's daughter and you can do this. It doesn't matter how many times you go down. It only matters if you don't get back up. Just keep getting up. Just keep getting up. Today we're going to show up. We're just going to show up. That's enough. Just keep showing up. Keep showing up, folks. Keep showing up for yourself. It's high time. That little kid has been in there trying to get you to show up for both of them. Repeat it as many times as needed and let it sink in. Next, with adult awareness, become less emotionally reactive to the family dynamics, even the memories of the family dynamics. Just don't react. Let it go. You can't change people who don't want to change. But that's not me. Right? I can't change something that doesn't want to change, but I can change me. How will I interact differently? Maybe for one thing, I won't. I'll just, if the person is still alive, I'll just let them be. Okay, I won't try to change your mind. That's okay. But you go off and do what you need to do for you. All right. 2, become more objective and observing of the family dynamics. Why do you want to do that? Because you want to see the train wreck coming. You can do that. All right. And when the memories start or whatever, if they're past and they still are haunting you, as soon, you know that rumbling, when the train is coming, you can hear and feel the rumbling. You can. All right. Be more objective. Step outside of the situation like you are that independent third-party observer and just observe the dynamic. And don't get anywhere near the intersection. Let it go. The other thing that may start to come up, it happened to me the other night, and I thought, wow, wonder why all that's coming up. All right. Be aware of the family stories, of the myths. Every family has stories, all right? The myths, the images. Now, as an adult, better resourced, you can spot distortions, maybe. All right? Watch those stories. Watch triangles. Triangular communication is very unhealthy. All right? What does that mean? That means that when 3 people are involved in a situation and there's conflict, somebody has to be the victim. Somebody has to be the rescuer, and somebody has to be the perpetrator, whether they are or they aren't. And quite often, those roles are already chosen. That's a really good time to excuse yourself and remember you've got something to do. Don't engage. All right? Because you don't actually have to be the perpetrator of that, the villain. All right? The blame, the one to blame. Somebody has. And if somebody grabbed victim space and somebody grabbed rescuer space, there's only one spot left, folks. This is called the Karpman triangle. Look it up. Karpman, I think it's Karpman with a C. Karpman triangle. In dysfunctional relationships, narcissists are bad for this, manipulating. All right. This whole Karpman triangle. And the thing is, sometimes when that is a more natural occurrence in our family dynamic, sometimes without meaning to, we allow ourselves to be drawn in. We can't understand why we always take a pummeling. Or who said I was going to be the rescuer? All right, look that one up. The best communications are dyadic. They're dyads. One person speaking directly to another person. All right. Okay, so how does that happen? It can happen when one person speaks to another person, and then the person who doesn't feel they made out so well goes to another person just for advice. And before you know it, you've got a triangle. All right. Okay. Become your own internal parent. And accomplish this by developing that intuitive voice that speaks to you. That spidey sense, it nurtures you when you're not feeling the best. It can also say, come on, lighten up. Come on, let's go do some. What do you need? Come on, what do you need? Come on, you can do that. Come on. All right. Love you. You make a complete horses behind of yourself on something. All right. And it says, well, not your best show, girl. Okay, tomorrow's another day. Is there any repair you need to do? Is there anybody you need to apologize to? Is there just own it. Just own it. Don't live it and relive it, and certainly don't shame yourself with it. That internal intuitive voice, too, will give you a heads up when you're not treating yourself with respect or someone else isn't treating you with respect. It doesn't matter whether on any day you are a 100%, pardon the word, screw up, right? You are still worthy of being treated with respect. Doesn't mean they're going to like you. It certainly doesn't mean they're going to agree with you, but you are still entitled to be treated with respect. All right. And everybody is allowed to redeem themselves. Everybody, if they're prepared to do the work, if they're prepared to own what they did or they said and they're prepared to do the work. Everybody is allowed to redeem themselves. So let's start. We're going to run over a little bit. Let's begin by asking yourself, fresh today, really, really and truly, who am I? Ask yourself, what do I value the most? What makes me happy? What gives me a deeper sense of fulfillment? What are my passions and my talents unique to me? What are my values? Always work from strength. What are your strengths? Always go to what are your strengths. Work from strengths. Never go to fear. Never go to fear. Always go to your strengths. Ask yourself, and then write about the things you would do. Okay, once you answer those questions, what would you do if you felt good enough right now? That you were good enough. If you felt that you were good enough, what would you do right now? This is where you encourage yourself to aim high. And I encourage you to dream big. All right? Because tomorrow can be different from today. Tomorrow, when you get off this podcast and you do that internal self-reckoning, whatever you come up with, that's a foundation to start from. That's you today as a resourced adult, able to quiet and nurture that inner child that still can get nervous and get a queasy tummy. So next week, we're going to continue. I'm hoping that we can move on to narcissistic fathers, but we may need to do a little more on recovery. All right, I want to make sure that each of the sections are there in case anybody wants to go back, that you've got a really complete toolkit. Okay? Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for coming. It's great seeing you.